I sent him a text one morning and I said, I love you with all that I am, but I can't live like this anymore.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling. Do you want to tell our new listeners who we are?
Yeah, I do. We have been best friends for over 20 years. We've both been through our fair share of trauma. And so we thought instead of crying about it, let's start a podcast and laugh about it.
Yeah.
And we interview everyday people with amazing stories to tell. No topic is off limits. I always forget to say that part. Let's tell them something fun about us.
As a child, I played violin, piano, and flute.
So musical. I think
Right?
you shouldn't forget the part about how you were on the cover of a church magazine holding your flute.
Okay, well, I didn't want anyone to get jealous of that,
We are
okay?
in the presence of a real star. I grew up doing figure skating, roller skating, and then I switched to competitive Latin and ballroom dancing for just over 10 years.
I love that. I went to so many of your competitions, and I even got to spray tan you in your bathtub.
And you had to get that spray tan everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
How are you?
Ugh, I'm
Yeah.
okay. This plague is never ending.
It's never ending.
So it started 3 weeks ago with two of my girls being sick, like being really tired and throwing up. So I was like, okay, they're good. Then my 11-year-old got a really bad cold and brutal sore throat, cough, fever, all this stuff. She was sick for a week. And then my oldest got it, same thing, fever, sore throat, bad cough. And so I was like, okay, I only have one child left to be sick, which is Jude, which is my youngest twin. But then my girls who were sick before with the fever and the throwing up, now they have this cold. So Kate got it and she's got the same thing. And now starting yesterday, Claire has it.
And you were knocked down for a few days.
And I was sick during the week from Tuesday until now. I'm still a little bit like stuffy. This is just insane. And everybody I know is sick. Everybody I know has sick kids.
I know. Somebody wrote in to us on Instagram and said you need to cut an onion and put it in the room and it like helps
I've heard that.
eat
I've heard
the
that.
sickness. I don't know the science
Yeah.
behind it, but I believe it.
We could try it out. I could
So
cut
you need
some
to go get
onions.
an onion.
Yeah, I have a whole bag of them in my kitchen. So we'll do
Well,
that.
Yeah, you're set.
So I've just been dealing with sick kids. I've been missing work. I've had my kids stay at my friends' houses because they also have sick kids. So they're just being sick together. And it's just been a whole thing.
We've been like really lucky. We've been like pretty like strict on not hanging out with sick people as so far, knock on wood. Like Olivia had a bit of a sniffle, but that was it.
Yeah, it has not been fun. How about you?
I am good. My work is so busy with Christmas
Yeah.
events being planned, but it's really fun. And I got passed the torch for like our team, which is made up of a few different departments. You know, when you're like in an office and every month you celebrate like that month's birthdays.
Yes.
So I'm now planning and organizing
Ooh.
the monthly branch birthdays.
So you guys do like everybody for that month, you pick a specific day and you celebrate everybody
Yeah.
on the same day? Okay.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. There's so many different ways to do it, right? I know where I've worked before, it's if it was your birthday before, then you buy the cake for the next person.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any sort of politics surrounding like that everybody celebrates on the same day situation?
I don't know. I think it went away with COVID and now they're trying
Right.
to reinvigorate it. So
Right.
I'm going to see if I can do it, but I'll keep you posted.
That's cute.
Yeah. And this weekend was Olivia's 12th birthday.
Yeah.
A big thing right now is either going to Flying Squirrel, the like trampoline place, or doing a locked room. But like
Right.
for 6 kids, you're looking at least $300.
Oh yeah. Plus then you're paying for the cake and you're paying for the food and you're paying for it doesn't
Yeah.
end there. Like it's so expensive.
Yeah. And we left it a little bit late and we were like, we can't book anything, but why don't you have a sleepover? Her birthday's on Canada's Remembrance Day. So like the
Okay, yeah.
Thursday, all her friends came over and then they had a sleepover, but we put together our own like locked room ish Harry Potter theme adventure. So not
That's
really a
awesome.
scavenger hunt. It was more like a locked room. Like they had to unlock a series of containers.
Okay.
And I don't really know much about Harry Potter, but like one of the challenges was they had to dig through a bunch of gillyweed, which is like seaweed in Harry
Yeah.
Potter, but we
Yeah.
used cold spaghetti and we put it in a
Ugh.
box with just holes cut into it so they couldn't tell what it was.
Oh,
I mean, they
gross.
like obviously figured out what it was, but
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
had to dig around for a key to unlock something,
Oh.
and I don't know, I thought it was pretty
You
good,
guys
but
are so
then
creative.
yeah, I don't know. I think this is probably the last year where that's gonna be like a fun,
Yeah.
cool thing
Yeah.
because next year, like, we just won't be, I don't know, like,
You won't be
as
invited.
we yeah, that's true. We were, like, excited to be part of it, and I think next
Yeah.
year we won't be
No.
yeah. But then the next day, so, Denny's, you can go for your
Yes.
birthday and get free breakfast.
Okay, yeah.
And so we told her friends that were sleeping over, bring $20 and we're going to go to Denny's the next morning.
Yeah.
And Olivia will get her free breakfast. And then we said that they could sit by themselves. We went and
Okay.
sat like on the other side of the restaurant
Oh.
and they were so excited. But I was like super disappointed. And I remember this happening to us like in high school.
Uh-huh.
The level of service you get when you are a preteen teenager is
Uh-huh.
so crappy. And,
Yeah.
like, we made sure we went in with them and I said, "We're the parents, like, we just want them to sit by themselves. They're really good kids, like, they're all ordering something."
Yeah, yeah.
The server and the staff knew that, like, we were there. They weren't just, like, a bunch of
Right.
hooligans. There's
Yeah.
4 12-year-old girls,
Yeah.
and we, like, sat and watched. We had a different server than them, and they were noticeably given less attention and less patience, and
Yeah.
they wanted to order smoothies and the server was like, "No, we can't do smoothies right now." But I don't know if they
That's
actually
so
couldn't or
frustrating.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and like these are
Because
like
there's this preconceived idea of what preteens are going to be like, and they're going to make a
yeah.
mess, and they're not going to have enough money, they're not going to tip well, all of these things, but that's so unfair.
Yeah, it was like really I don't know that they really noticed as much, like maybe
Yeah.
like we definitely noticed just watching it, and
Yeah.
then when we said, "Okay," and like the girl with the glasses, like it's her birthday, the server was like, "Does she have ID?" And we're like, "She's 12.
She's 12. Yeah.
What kind of ID would she have?"
Yeah.
And Lindsay was like, "I guess I could try and find her birth certificate on my phone." And then I was like, "You'd probably be more have better luck like going through your Facebook memories of the
Yeah.
last 12 years and every
Right?
year it's going to be her growing
Oh
up."
my
And
God.
then another server was like, "Oh, actually like we don't need ID for kids."
Yeah, because really, who's going to lie about their kid's birthay?
And,
And
like,
even
if
if
you
they
it's a
did, it's like
12.99 yeah.
exactly.
It
Yeah.
was, like,
Yeah.
12.99 off the bill, and there was 5 other people getting full
Yeah.
meals and drinks.
Yeah. Ugh,
Anyway, I was
that's so
just like, "I
frustrating.
know,
I know,
Denny's, do
that's such a
better.
bummer.
Servers, do better."
Right? Yeah. I have a funny story about
Tell me.
I'm doing some major purging right now of everything, and I've realized that I'm a hoarder. It's not good. I don't have any stacks of newspapers. I don't have any flat cats anywhere, but I just have an excess of stuff. And I think when you have 5 children, that kind of comes with the territory. Plus, I have all of my husband's stuff. Not all of it, but I've gotten rid of quite a bit. But it's a lot of stuff.
I feel like all of us that have been through your house with you to, like, declutter that are listening are just like, "Michelle, we said you're a hoarder." Kinder than that, and you
I
just didn't
know.
see it. We've been through
No.
this.
I know. And
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry. It's like I finally hit that rock bottom where I'm like, okay, I can see it myself now.
yeah.
Where it's like, why do I have all of this stuff? And I was going through this with my friend, and I'm like, why would I go through this box and keep this stuff? Like, why would I think,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to keep this for now when I haven't opened this box again for another year or more? What am I doing? Right. And anyway, so it just got to that point where I was just like, I'm done. Like, I went through all my clothes. I get like the FabFitFun box, and then I put stuff in there, like keepsakes and pictures. I went through all of those boxes. The funniest part, though, was that I have experienced a lot of death in my life. And so I would hand her something and I'd be like, this is my dead husband's, or this is my dead husband's dead dad's. It was just like and she's,
Oh
do you
my
know
god.
anybody who was alive? Like, it was just ridiculous. But then we came across this little sweater, and I was like, I wore this when I was a baby. I was like, should I keep it? And she's like, are you planning on wearing it again? I was like, yeah, this is my goal weight.
Yeah. Newborn.
I was like, I'm going to put this on the fridge, and every time I go to get something, I'm going to look at it and be like, no, can't do it.
You want to get back to your starting weight of 7 pounds, 8
Right? It
ounces.
was so funny. We were laughing so hard. But anyways, it was just so funny. But yeah, I'm going through every room, getting rid of things, the amount of stuffies we got rid of, like my kids are attached to things too and hoarders too. And so they had all these like huge squishmallows that just take up so much room. So we got rid of a ton of those. We're just like getting rid of all this crap.
Yeah. Like
It feels good.
the amount of things that Jana and I threw out from your house
I know.
that you didn't even know,
I know.
but then you never missed it.
That's scary.
I know, like you'd be upstairs and Jana and I were like, just throw it out.
I
Just put it in
know.
the bag. And we were just like getting rid of all this stuff.
And I've never once been like, where is that
Yeah.
random popsicle stick?
I think I'm almost the opposite to a detriment because I'm like, well, I haven't looked at it in 5 minutes. I'm just going to get rid of it. And then a week later, I'm like, damn it, where is that
Right.
thing? Like, I'm just like, not,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
not a minimalist. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
make rash decisions the other way.
Yeah, I apologize for anyone who's gone through my house before and has helped me with this and then I just kept like bringing more shit into my house,
We meet every other Thursday.
right?
Yeah.
Like, have you been victimized by Michelle's hoarding?
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's really weird to look at it from a different perspective and be like, why do I have all this stuff? That's weird.
But I think that
It's
was part
just
of grief
bizarre.
is like you
No,
hold on to
true.
things and then one day that emotional attachment isn't there anymore. They say before you get rid of like a loved one's stuff, if you're unsure, keep
Yeah.
it and then in a year pick it up and Maria Kondo it and
Right.
think, does this still hold like that same sentimental value? And maybe it
Yeah.
does and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it was that the emotional attachment to it. But yeah, it's just it's time to
Yeah.
declutter.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is all.
Somehow I want this to segue into our wish list.
I wish that I wasn't a hoarder.
My God, Michelle, that's so funny that you mentioned that because
Yeah.
we actually just started a wish list.
OMG, that is just amazing. Tell me more.
What a funny segue. There is a website called Buy Me a Coffee,
Mhm.
and it's, I think, designed for people who want to support creators on a one-time basis that isn't like a monthly subscription. So they just have this new feature where you as a creator, if you're needing like new equipment, new software, if you're saving up for something, you can put it on there and people can contribute to it, kind of like a GoFundMe, but I think
Or like a
maybe on a
Kickstarter or something.
yeah, yeah. And so I thought we would give it a go. And I just put one thing on there because I get nervous about asking for help. And so for our first wish list item, we put a 1 year subscription to Descript, which is the editing software that we use.
Yes. That you love.
And
And it really saves you a lot of time when it comes to editing.
yeah, and it allows
Yeah.
us to like transcribe episodes, which means we'd
Mhm.
be able to put it on our website, which means we'd be more accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing communities.
Yeah. So if you want to contribute, you can go to our Instagram. It's in the link in our bio, or you can
Mhm.
go to buymeacoffee.com/IDNSUFT.
My God, were you just reading that? I always forget what it is.
I read it because it's in our address bar right now.
Oh, so smart.
Yeah. But you did mention something about a monthly subscription. Do we have one of those?
My God, these segues are just flying
Right?
off the
We're
shelf.
just professional.
We do. So if you're just like, ladies, please, I want to support you and the work that you do more than one time.
Mhm.
And I can't get enough of your silly antics.
Right?
Give me more. Have we got a deal for you? We have a Patreon.
Why
And
don't
if
we
you're
have
just
more
listening,
advertisements on this show? We're so
honestly,
good.
it's because
just
we're too
so
good.
fluid.
Patreon is a monthly subscription where you obviously pay every month. We have 3
Mhm.
tiers to choose from. You get 2 bonus episodes per month that you're never going to hear on the main feed. We have over 64 episodes there right now. So if you were to like hit pause, go to patreon.com/I did not sign up for this, and then sign up for it,
Mhm.
you'd instantly have 64 episodes. At the level 3, which we call the ultimate sufty, you also get a once a month video episode called Wet
Mhm.
Wednesday.
Yes.
And we do draws. Like last month we gave away a book. For Pride month we gave away a whole Pride package.
Mhm.
And this month in November we're giving away a free reading with Lisa the medium.
Yeah, Lisa, who we've all done readings with, and she was on our Patreon, and she has offered a free reading for one of our lucky Patreon listeners.
Yeah. So all you have to do to enter is be a patron in November.
Absolutely.
So even though like it's November 15th that you're listening to this, maybe you have, oh, that just reminded me of something else. Yeah, you've got until November 30th
Yeah,
to
awesome.
become a patron and be entered into a win. The other thing I was going to mention is it is my birthday month,
Woohoo!
which is actually ironic that I'm talking about it because I just don't love my birthday. But
No, you don't.
like,
Oh,
not,
hold
but in a
on.
weird way. It's not like I don't mind that I'm getting older. I think it's like such a privilege to be 1 year older. I'm just like, sure, I'm going to be disappointed or let down, or I don't want to impose anybody.
One of these days, we're going to have to unpack this trauma and go back to your childhood and see what your birthdays were like.
Yeah, not
Because,
great if I'm being
yeah,
honest.
I'm gonna think they weren't great.
Yeah, on I think it was my 10th birthday, my sister and her friend Shakti invited all of my friends downstairs for makeovers, but I wasn't invited. And they locked me out of the room and they all got makeovers and I just sat there by myself. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I think we pinpointed it right there, literally.
Yeah, that was the pivotal moment.
Right?
But I decided because it's my birthday week and I was just feeling, I don't know,
Frisky.
frisky yesterday morning, I decided that we haven't, since we launched our new merch site, we hadn't really done like a discount or a coupon code. So I decided for this week being my birthday week, I called it, if you enter code Carlings39, you get 10% off anything and everything in our merch store.
I love that. That's such a good idea.
And it goes until November 20th, which is my birthday. So if you've been thinking about getting something or you want to buy your friend something for Christmas or you just want to, then you should do it. My God.
We're so good at this.
Yeah.
Should we get into this week's episode?
Whoa, I think we should. Who's this? Okay, enjoy. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Good morning, Chelsey.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Excellent. And you?
Good. Thank you so much for being on our little podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start by introduce yourself? Tell us like a little bit about you, and then we'll find where your story starts.
Yeah. So I am 36. My name is Chelsey. I live in central Alberta. My husband and I have a farm out here. And yeah, that's where it all starts. I met him 13 years ago. He was like the man of your dreams. If there was such a thing, he was it. He comes from Manitoba. He's actually an ex-Hutterite from Manitoba. So he grew up on a colony out there. He was gone quite a few years when we met. And yeah, that's where it all started.
Did he leave? Because it's a religion, right?
It's a community. So even though it's that colonization, it's a community. And so they have their beliefs and guidelines. And he's just not somebody that can be told what to do. He's that guy that's like, you're not telling me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm going to do it when and how I want to do it. So he left at 18. So this November marks 20 years for him being gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you leave, is it similar to leaving like a strict religion where like you no longer communicate with your family, or is there still a relationship?
There's a distance, there's a gap in the beginning because obviously the family is disappointed and they want their children to stay, but there was never where he didn't talk to his family. They despised me when we were first together. I met his brother and his cousin because they lived in Calgary as well. So I lived in Calgary, and that's where we met, was actually at the Ranchmans in Calgary.
Nice.
That's like classic.
Yes. I met his brother and his cousin, and it was about a year after we started dating that he was like, okay, I'll take you home to meet my parents. And I was terrified because I was going to the colony, and of course I was not a Hutterite woman. And so they had these fears of him not ever coming back. Little did they realize at that point, he had already made up his mind. He was never coming back.
Right.
So there was a lot of like angst and resentment from them towards me.
That's
but
gotta
it
be
wasn't
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before even knowing
but
you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take it with a grain of salt. At least I did. I just looked at it as it's not personal. It's nothing that, they have against me. It's just that they love him and they want him back home. He's the oldest son, the firstborn child. So, of course, he usually follows in dad's footsteps and takes over the responsibilities that his dad would normally take on. Yeah, that just didn't happen. We were together for a year and a half in Calgary, and I decided I was coming back home to the farm. I couldn't do the big city anymore. I just said to him, he was working the rigs and he was never home. I said, if you want to come, great. If you don't, then that's your choice, but I need to do it. So if you want to stick together, I'm going. Come or stay.
Yeah.
And so he came. We moved back up here. We rented for a very short time until we found what we wanted. And then we bought the place we live in now. And I slowly started my animal collection.
Yeah.
That's
I know
awesome.
we're very similar. You also have 5 dogs.
I do. And a barn full of cats and 30 chickens
Aw.
and 2 horses. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so keeps us busy.
And currently 13 puppies.
Yes. Yes. So anybody needs a
I
puppy.
want all of them. Yeah. How old are they?
5 weeks old yesterday.
Oh, little
So
nuggets.
they're just like that roly-poly, finding their voice, growling. They're our
Yeah.
kids. We don't have kids, so they're our babies. Yeah, I guess the story starts when we first met. So my husband was like a casual drinker, social drinker, whatever, have a few drinks. I've never drank. I've tried to like it. It tastes terrible.
Yes.
I would far
Agreed.
rather just have a pop and pretend.
Yeah.
But I'm good. But yeah, so he started on this, like, he'd come home from the rigs, he'd be home for a week. Life was a big party. We were in our 20s. You don't ever think anything of it. And as time progressed and we came up here, I'd come home from work and he'd be drinking by himself. Again, you don't think a lot of it. You're like, he's on days off, he wants to have a couple drinks, who cares?
Yeah.
But then it turned from a couple drinks to a whole bottle. And it turned from coming home to work and he'd have a few drinks and be productive in the day to coming home and he couldn't even stand up.
Oh, wow.
And I knew alcoholism was an issue with his family because his dad was sober for 16 years, I want to say.
Wow.
And 2 months before my husband's kind of crash, where he agreed to get help, was when his dad went to treatment as well.
Oh, wow.
About 60 years old, he went. And one of his brothers that was living out here, he went back to the colony and he ended up going for treatment for drugs and alcohol.
Do Hutterites drink?
Yeah.
Okay.
And culturally, I see them drink quite a bit because it seems to be like the one thing that they have control over.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
I see a lot of that they enjoy their drinks, and some people have an off switch, but lots don't.
I guess my assumption was more that they don't drink. So then when you do leave, you dabble in something
freedom
that you haven't done before. But if drinking isn't against,
because I think I'm thinking this is a terrible reference, but that TLC show, The Amish. And they don't drink or do anything. And then they leave at 18 to see the world and just do everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so they have a lot of freedom, and then all of a sudden they have a lot of money because they're working and working the rigs, and so they start dipping into everything. I was very fortunate in the sense that my husband's drug of choice was alcohol until they legalized marijuana, and then that became a factor as well. He was drunk and high 24/7. The only time he was ever sober is he'd get up in the morning, he'd go to work. There's lots of days now that he's sober that he would say, I didn't remember what I did until noon.
Oh, God.
Wow. That's so scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying. How he still has a license, I'll never know. I've personally called the police on him many times. Coincidentally, they could never find him. Funny, I always did and told them where they were. But so at the depth of his addiction, he would take the vents out of his truck and he would pack them full of those nude vodka seltzer things.
Yeah.
And he'd start his truck before he'd leave work and turn the air conditioner on high. So he would have cold drinks on his way home.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you married at this point?
Yeah. His addiction didn't really hit the depths until after we got married. He would drink and stuff, but he was open about it. But after we got married, it got a hold on him. It just went in a downward spiral and he started getting very violent and like verbally abusive. And at the end of it, I was packing up to leave. The day he went into treatment, I was planning on leaving because he had been physically violent. That was the breaking point for me. And at that time, because I'd never experienced addiction in my own family, I didn't really understand addiction. Like, I learned so much through his treatment and my journey and my recovery and all of it, because it takes you down with them.
Oh, yeah.
It's a mental disease, just like cancer or diabetes or
Yeah.
anything else that needs treatment.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so many people, my family, they all said it. He just needs to quit. He makes bad choices and he just needs to quit. The
Like,
reality of it is he couldn't. So yeah, it got ugly.
did he recognize it as an addiction before you, at the same time as you?
I think he recognized it early on because he would hide his alcohol.
Mm.
So we have an old farmhouse. Only part of our basement is dug out and the other part is dirt. It's got a retaining wall and dirt. And I would find bottles buried in the dirt.
Oh,
So it was
wow.
like a shame thing where he was trying
Yeah.
to hide it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was easy while he worked away because he could drink all day, all night. And I didn't see him sometimes for 2-3 months when he was gone.
Wow.
So when he came home, it was all of that obsession with one another. And like I say, he is a magnificent person and I love
Yeah.
him to pieces. If I didn't, there would have been no way in hell I could have held on for as long as I
Yeah.
did. I'd call my dad crying and he'd be like, well, just leave him. And that was
Yeah.
his answer. Just leave him.
Yeah.
And my
Like, I'm
dad's just,
surprised your dad didn't just show up and beat him to death.
Yeah.
he would have, but
Yeah.
there was some very strong, please daddy, don't do that going on. Because my dad's a fierce protector and I've always been daddy's little girl. When he first met my husband, he was elated and loved him to pieces because he works hard and he's got a strong work ethic and he's respectable and respectful, and he didn't see what was coming either. Like, it was just
Right.
all of a sudden blindsided one day where
Yeah.
it was like, you've got to quit drinking. This is an issue. And all of a sudden you're in a full on brawl and not knowing where it came from.
Oh my God.
God. And
And
did you feel it was extra isolating being in a remote community?
it was easier for him to gaslight. It was easier for him to make it my fault.
Yeah.
Like I was the villain. And as time goes on and you learn addictions and put the time into it, as I've learned over the last year and a bit now that he's been in recovery, it's all about them finding a reason to make it somebody else's fault. I drink because you were mean to me, or I drink because I had a bad upbringing, or I drink because, no, you drink because you have a problem.
Yeah.
And there's a chemical imbalance that happens, and society is just so set on, these are just awful people. Like, why would you choose to drink? Why would you choose to do drugs? And I have to admit, I was one of them in the beginning. I was one of them.
Yeah.
Like, why would you decide? I didn't understand addiction. Are you kidding me? You couldn't get a beer down my throat if you tried.
Yeah.
But as I saw him slowly spiral, my well-being went down the tubes with him. And I never, ever saw it. Never saw it. My parents would say to me, you've changed so much. You've changed. I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm growing up. Like,
Yeah.
life changes. When he went into treatment, I realized just how messed up I was.
Wow.
And it took me to the depths of despair, because now my addiction was gone, because I had become codependent and fixated on, I was going to fix him. I was going to save him, because if you love anybody enough, you can love them, love those broken pieces back.
Yeah.
I became fixated with controlling the finances and making sure there wasn't enough money in the bank account that he had access to so that he could buy more booze. Newsflash, they find a way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He would collect bottles in ditches if he had to. He found where he could get a 60-ounce bottle of vodka for $30.
Yeah.
Probably tasted like road tar, but
Yeah.
it
It
still gave
did
him
the
that
job.
fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did. There was so much hurt that started to surface because you just go into this survival mode. It was years of like physical and verbal altercations and him driving drunk and the stress. And we struggled when we got married. We wanted kids not more than anything in the world. And I was pregnant when we got married, and I was pregnant with twins and miscarried at 16 weeks. After the twins, we got pregnant again, and I had another miscarriage. So they sent us to a fertility program, and we went through all these expensive fertility treatments and testing and all of this. And it was just becoming a waste in my eyes because I was like, now you're in this state where I don't want to bring kids into that.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of it, over a course of 12 years, I had 21 miscarriages.
Oh my
So
God.
I would just shove it down. And in my mind, I'd cry about it for a couple of days and get up and go back to work because I was the one looking after our farm and everything that we had worked so hard to accomplish. And he was just stuck in this haze of he just needed to drink. And I was like lost because we were going to lose our house. We were going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And so I just worked and worked and didn't realize until he finally got help that it was so detrimental to my well-being. And I've always been like super bubbly and upbeat. And then all of a sudden I'm this puddle that can't put it together and can't make sense of where life went. You blink and all of a sudden 10 years have gone by and you're like, I just wasted 10 years of my life and I have no idea if this is going to help. Yeah. So like I say, it was a rough road to get him to the treatment part. I sent him a text the morning of because he would go on benders. So he would disappear for 2-3 days and I'd see him drive by our place. I'd see him come in when I was sleeping, but he didn't want to face me. And this would happen once a month, usually around a full moon, crazy as it is.
Wow.
So I knew he was still alive. That was it. And I sent him a text one morning and I said, I love you with all that I am, but I can't live like this anymore. And so you have to make some hard choices and know that he had cried to me countless times that he didn't want to drink. He didn't want it.
Yeah.
But when I'd offer help, he wasn't ready yet because he would say to me, I can do it by myself. And that's the idea that so many of them get into is I can do it by myself because society has shamed so much that addiction is a choice. It's not a choice.
Right. And then they must also feel like I can't go into treatment because I have to keep working or I have to support my family or I have to do these things. So taking that time away to go to treatment is just going to make things worse when in reality it does. But they probably think I can do it myself. I can keep working. I can keep doing what I need to do for my family. They can't.
Pride is a huge thing.
Help.
Yeah. Pride's a huge thing. And he kept it very hush. So I sent him a text that morning and I said, you've got to make that decision for yourself. I can't make that choice for you. I love you no matter what, but I'm going to have to love you enough to let you go because I can't keep putting my well-being on the line. So he didn't respond. And then he did after, I'd say 5 or 6 hours. And he came back, well, I drink because you're a witch. And I drink because you put this strain on me. And I drink because we have no money. And we had money.
Yeah.
We had money. I just squirreled it away so that he didn't drink it all because he probably would be in the ground if he would have had endless access.
Yeah.
I talked to his parents that day and I said, as sad as it is, like the last thing I did was get married to get divorced because I come from divorced parents. And that's, I swore when I got married, there was no way I was doing it to get divorced.
Yeah.
And here I was, felt like a failure because 5 years into our marriage, I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. And so his dad phoned him and he said, you've got to make some choices. And his dad was fresh out of recovery 2 months. His dad called me back about a half an hour after I talked to him and said to me, he said, I hope you were praying on things. And I said, of course. But at this point in time, I said, I've lost my faith. Like I've been praying for years.
Yeah.
And he said he's willing to accept help. So that's where it gets tricky because I was like, okay, he's willing to accept help. So I was on the road and I had actually drove down to Red Deer just to get away for the day. And so that's about an hour and a half from where we live.
Yeah.
And I started making some phone calls to get him into a treatment center because his dad said to me, he said, you can't afford rehab. And I said, I'll figure it out. Like, just leave it to me. If he's wanting help, we'll get him help. I called Clara's home and I called the hospitals and I called HealthLink and I called mental health. And I got the same answer from all of them. It's a 4 to 6 week wait if you're lucky.
And like somebody could be dead in that time.
Precisely. And that was my argument. I'm like, first off, he's asking for help because at his lowest, he drove his vehicle into the side of our garage.
Oh.
He tried to get into the house and was so out of it, he could not. And he was in a puddle in the front yard It was cold. It was rainy. This was August when this happened. When I came home, his vehicle was still running in gear, parked in the side of our garage. He was bloody and covered in mud in the front yard
Yeah.
and desperate. And so HealthLink said to me, if you want him in sooner, you could take him to the likes of a local hospital and they'll do detox for him, but then they'll let him go. I said, perfect. So you give him a week to take all the alcohol out of his system and medically detox him, because it's a scary thing when they start medically detoxing, because their body had become reliant on alcohol for, in my husband's case, 20 years. He started drinking when he was 13. So 22 years he had been drinking. And now all of a sudden you're going to take that away, give him a week in hospital where you pump him full of a bunch of different drugs so that he doesn't feel the pains of that. And then you cut him loose. So where's that helping anything? Now he's just going to go out and he's going to drink the same amount as he did when he went in. And he's going to wind up in a coma. And that's, in my opinion, why there's so many drug addictions now. And it makes me angry because, oh, we don't have space for them. We don't have space for them. You have to pay for it privately. In the meantime, these poor souls have had to hit their rock bottom and have literally lost everything. In my husband's case, he was lucky because he hit his rock bottom, but I still kept a roof over our head. And he was still okay. But for those people that don't have that, it's terrifying. And everyone said, you don't do them any favors by making all the arrangements for them. Let them do the work. I was like, if I was broken and I was asking for help and every door I knocked on was, sorry, can't help you. Sorry, can't help you. I would feel so out of sorts that I would probably, I mean, in all of it, it was enough to make me want to drink.
Yeah.
I finally found a recovery center that's about 30 minutes from our place, and it's a ranch and they are a private facility. What that meant though is for a 4-week program, it cost $22,000.
Jesus.
Plus meds.
Yeah.
So by the time it was said and done, it was $26,000.
Oh my God.
So he was out of work for 2 months. He was in treatment for a month and then in recovery at home for that first 3 weeks that he came out. And a week before he went into treatment, he was out of work. So for 2 months, it was on me to pay all of our household bills, come up with this ridiculous amount of money to get him help, because that was the only way we could get him help. Because if you cough this money out of your pocket, it was wait weeks and weeks and weeks. And if the intake coordinator felt that there was somebody worse off than you, you got bumped.
Yeah, that's awful.
So I phoned them and they said, yeah, we'll take him. And I said, when? Do I have to wait 6 weeks?
Yeah.
And he said, no. He said, how far away are you from here? And I said, like, I'm an hour away from home and it takes me a half an hour to get there. And he said, okay, perfect. I'll give you 2.5 hours. That should be enough time to get a bag packed. He told me what to pack, what to bring, what he would need, and what it would look like. But he told me what it would look like for him.
Right.
Nobody tells you what it looks like for you.
Yeah.
Because everybody sees the problem as the problem's fixed because now the alcoholic is sober. They don't look at it as the relationships around them. They do a lot of damage. It's like a tornado. I dropped him off in treatment and I phoned a good friend of mine and I was like, I need help. Like, I've got my dogs locked in the garage and I can't get any of the doors open because there's a vehicle parked in the side of my garage. And he came and helped me and we got everything fixed. And it was a scavenger hunt for 3 weeks around here, finding all the bottles that were stashed.
Oh God.
But then in that, on about day 3, I realized I was broken. Now your partner that you love, that helps you through everything that's hard, is gone. You cannot even speak to them on the phone because for the first week he was in there, he was so angry, he wouldn't even call. And so that is gone. In and amongst all of this, 3 weeks before he went into treatment, my grandma, her and I were inseparable. That was part of the reason why I moved where I did. She passed away. So your support network is all of a sudden vanished. And then you start to realize I'd never experienced anxiety in my life. And I was having severe panic attacks and I was diagnosed with PTSD and I was reaching out for help, but getting the same thing. Like, here, buy this book, read this book. We can set you up with a therapist, but it's going to be about 7 weeks before we can get you in.
Yeah.
You sit there and you're like, but I need help now, not 7
Yeah.
weeks from now, not a month from now, because I haven't eaten or slept or done anything. I've lived off cigarettes and coffee for the last 4 days and sat in a puddle and cried and tried to hold the pieces together long enough to go to work and then come home and look after all my responsibilities here. But then you're worried sick about him. The nurse would call every couple of days and be like, he's still doing good. Oh, good. Glad to hear he's still alive. That's
Yeah.
basically the only thing you got.
This is so reminiscent of what went on with my husband. He went into a mental health facility for a month. It was just like he's getting all the help he needs and he's getting therapists, and he would go swimming and he would go do pottery and he would do all these things. And I'm at home with our 5 children trying to figure out how I was going to pay the bills and how everybody was going to be okay. And I didn't have my partner. And it's just like, obviously they need the help and you want them to be there, but there's nobody for you
No.
to
Yeah.
help you pick up all the pieces.
And you almost get resentful in those moments.
Yeah.
And then you feel guilty for being resentful.
Yeah.
And then it's just all of these emotions that come flooding towards you because I'll be real, I was pissed. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? You put us in this place.
Yeah.
Your addiction got us here. And now here I am, the one cleaning up the mess. And you're there getting all of the handshakes and all of the hugs and all of the support. And you've got counselors and therapists and psychologists and whatever you need 24/7. And I had nobody
Yeah.
because my dad was totally set against. He's like, whatever, do what you want, but I don't have a lot of faith.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Like he hurt me. And
Yeah.
in turn, my dad had a lot of emotions attached to that.
Mhm.
My mom, same kind of thing. Like I was on my own. It's not like my mom and dad were there to help me clean up the mess, pick up the pieces, put everything back together.
Yeah.
And help make sure the bills were paid. Like that was on me. And while he was in there, I was selling off our possessions, like my car and our holiday trailer. On top of it, we had a litter of puppies because we usually have 2 litters a year. And he went into treatment on the 23rd. And on the 27th, I had 12 puppies born. So as if I didn't have enough on my plate, now I have all of this extra work.
Yeah.
You keep going like, when's it time to fix me? But then they would start having visitation and you could see them on Sunday from noon until 4. The first day I was there, I stopped on the side of the road and I couldn't even bring myself to pull into that facility because I was a mess.
Yeah.
I was crying and hyperventilating and vomiting. It took Ativan to get me in there.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to face it. I knew I needed to deal with it, but I didn't know how it was going to look. Like there was so much hurt, like how I knew I wanted to get over it. I knew I wanted to forgive and I recognized it as being a mental health thing, but I didn't know how to do it. Like, how do you forgive somebody that betrays your trust, lies to you for years, hits you, yells at you, screams at you, calls you names? He would get drunk and let the air out of the tires of my vehicle. Like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So there you are in the morning before you go to work. And at the time I commuted an hour and a half to work one way. So there I am at 5 o'clock in the morning outside doing chores, realizing my tires are flat, having to do that and then deal with all the rest of life. And it was overwhelming. I was there for him all through treatment. And he kept saying to me, when I get out of here, I'm going to help you heal. No, you're not, because it's not your job.
Yeah.
And his
You know?
healing is ongoing.
Yeah.
It's never his
Exactly.
healing is never going to be over.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
said, your job in helping that healing is prove to me that you can earn my trust back
Yeah.
Yeah.
and prove to me you're not going to hurt me. Like, here we are a year later. And if he raises his voice to me, it's enough to send me over the edge because
Absolutely.
of that trauma attached to it, that it's just, what are you talking about? You just find yourself falling back, and some days are better than others. There's been times where he's come home from work and held his hands up to give me a hug and I flinched. That shouldn't be.
Oh, that's so bad. So how do you kind of forgive, and how does your family forgive?
So like my mom and my dad, they have been really good. And my stepdad and my stepmom, they've been awesome. They treat him with respect. They don't like what he did, but they are very proud of what they see now because they see a change. They see the difference. They see we're happy. And they see that he's a fantastic guy. Like he's a great person. And I met so many people, like when he was in treatment, we met some amazing people that looked like total bums when they came in there. One of my husband's best friends came in there screaming, yelling in nothing more than his boxers because his
Ugh.
parents didn't believe he wasn't going to smuggle drugs in there.
Oh, God.
Wow.
And he is a very accomplished welder and machinist, and he's an amazing person. And I would
Mhm.
trust him with my life.
Yeah.
But if you would have told me that was the relationship that was going to grow in 4 weeks and continue to grow after he was out, I never in a million years would have imagined that, because I looked at this guy and I was like, yeah, it's pretty sketchy. Like,
Yeah.
and now he comes and spends weeks at our house, and
Yeah.
I would never think anything of it. But
Yeah.
if you would have told me a year ago that would be cool, I'd be like, he's going to take anything that's not bolted down, and this is going to
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. Did you
And
yourself go to any Al-Anon or CODA meetings or
Mhm.
anything like
the day he went into treatment, I knew I needed help. That was the start. And I called HealthLink, and they put you in touch with the mental health, and the crisis counselor will talk to you for your half an hour or whatever and give you some
Yeah.
phone numbers. And so I'd call all the phone numbers and it would be the same thing. We have a wait list, but we can put you on the wait list if there's cancellation. It's 4 to 6 weeks, blah, blah, blah. 4 to 6 weeks seems to be their magic number. And I said, 4 to 6 weeks isn't going to cut it. And I even reached out to the rehab facility, and this is something that as time goes on and we're getting further along in our healing, I'm trying to really advocate for these facilities to offer family treatment, to show the family and the spouses and the partners that life changes. Life looks a lot different for us today than it did a year ago.
Yeah.
Because yes, you have a sober spouse, but it was like we started our relationship all over again, because they are different people.
Yeah.
Totally different. They're not the same people. They go through big changes and they learn different coping mechanisms, and they are taught different ways in how to handle stresses. And so where it's like to you or I looks as being disrespectful, it's them gathering their thoughts and putting themselves together to come back to it. And I'm like, middle of the conversation, you're walking away from me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right.
And I find myself having to check myself, because there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's times where it's like a pity party. You put me through this hell, and now you want me to be understanding of you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I find myself going, okay, let the past be the past. It's gone. Like that
Mhm.
person is gone. The person I was then is gone, and you have to let it go. But it's also setting boundaries. And everybody would say, you have to be firm on your boundaries. You have to be firm on your boundaries. I'm a pushover. I'm a total pushover.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled, like I've really struggled to say, you know what? No, you don't get to talk to me that way. Or no, you don't get to say those things to me. This last month, I've been really sick and in and out of the hospital and had to have surgery. And I have Crohn's. So it's been an ongoing thing for our whole relationship. But this last year with the stress, I just think it just triggered it, and it just sent it into a big flare up. Like last March, I had to have surgery, and I lost 170 pounds in a year.
Wow.
And he was nowhere to be found in any of that. He was sober enough to pick me up from the hospital and bring me home. But there I laid in bed by myself and looking after myself. And then this past month, I was in there, and even in the heart of harvest, where it's the busiest time of the season, he was there every single night.
Wow.
Every night, and showed up with, my husband does not shop. Are you kidding me? He's a farm boy. He does not shop. He does not cook. He does not do laundry.
Yeah.
And he had gone to Walmart and he bought pajama bottoms and he bought comfy, cozy sweaters and made sure I had all the toiletries I needed and shampoo and toothbrush. And he was there. And if he couldn't make it, it was texting nonstop, and he would call. It shows growth. It shows development. And that helps heal more than anything.
Yeah.
Like back to what Michelle was saying, like, how do you get over that? And it's to see those landmarks and to see the growth and see the improvement. And it starts to erase those memories,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
replaced with new ones.
I think it's so important what you were saying about this, like advocating for family counseling, because a lot of the time the person, like you said, who's in treatment is getting the help and is getting what they need, and they're getting the coping mechanisms and the learning how to set boundaries, but the rest of the family doesn't know what to do. And I can relate to that, where it's like you don't know if you're going to make things worse, if you're going to make things better. It's almost like you need to learn how to be around this person now that they are in recovery, and we need to learn how to now help that person, also help ourselves, and not live in that fear of, is there something that I'm going to do that's going to be wrong, or that's going to put them back into where they were?
Yeah, you feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time, and you have a bunch of built up resentment, and when they come home, nobody tells you they're going to be withdrawn. Nobody tells you that they just spent a month practically in isolation with their thoughts and unloading all of their crap and unloading all of their baggage. And they go to classes from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. because they keep them busy. And you've been hustling and working 12-hour days. And in my case, commuting 3 hours on top of that. So my day was 15 hours long, trying to sneak in an Al-Anon meeting here and there, looking after all the animals, looking after the garden, looking after the house, figuring out how you're going to make the ends meet and pay for their treatment. And you're just, by the time he came home, I was exhausted. I was elated to have him home, but he was so withdrawn and so different. And then you grieve the loss of the person that they were, and nobody tells you that. And it's like, why are you grieving this person that's sitting beside me? But it's because they're a totally different person. You always hear lots about, I got out and my husband was an alcoholic and now he's sober. Or my wife was an alcoholic and now he's sober. And I got out, I got away from it, and yay for me. But nobody ever tells you the stories of, I made it through. We made it out the other side. We survived and we're better for it. Yeah, it's tough. It's hard. It's raw. It's real. It's a lot of therapy and medication. And you have to unpack your stuff. And his counselor, the only advice he gave me was, you should buy a book by Melody Beattie called Codependent No More. Okay, great. Thanks. So of course, I'm like, if this book's going to help, like, I'm willing to do anything. You go through all of these things, and then you start to dig a little deeper. And my medical doctor actually was able to put me in touch with a psychiatrist who was able to get me in with an addictions counselor.
That's
because
amazing.
and it happened very quickly, thank God, because you have to understand what addiction is in order to understand the recovery process. You think you understand it because you lived it, but you don't understand what's going on in their head and what they're doing, and they're working through those 12 steps. And some of those steps are real because, like you said, there's triggers. And there's triggers from past childhood traumas and things that happened that started this whole thing. Like, it didn't just start because he decided beer tasted good one day.
Exactly.
And so they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that they're hurting. And he would call from rehab and lash out. On his second and third week, he was able to call, and he would call and he would just lash out. And I'm like, you've humiliated me publicly for the last 10 years. And now I've got you to a place where they're helping you and what you asked for, and it's still not enough. And now you're making me feel like a fool in front of all the people that you're there with. It's hard. You kind of question, like, do I really want that in my life? And you start sorting through your own baggage. And it's a process. It's a process of what serves me, what doesn't, who serves me, who doesn't, and who brings drama and who doesn't. It's tough because we've been living in this bubble with COVID for these last couple of years. And so you get so socially isolated leading up to this whole ordeal. And then you're socially isolated afterwards. And now that you can be social, you have these big fears, because if we go to a birthday party and they're drinking, is that going to trigger him? Is he going to want to drink? Last night was my cousin's wedding. Is that going to be okay? Or are we going to have to leave early because he's going to be uneasy and uncomfortable? And you still find yourself doing that. And the addictions counselor I saw, God bless him, he was an amazing person, but he's a man from Texas, just down to the nitty gritty and real as they come. And he said to me, if you're going to make a life with this man, you're going to have to learn to change your life. If you don't drink, it doesn't affect things. But if he's uncomfortable, you have to be willing to up and go at the drop of a pin. So in a way, you still do walk on eggshells, but not so much. He's become very good at letting me know. If we're out somewhere and he says, I think it's time to go, I don't question it. Okay, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get in the truck, and as we're driving home, we'll talk about it, or we'll say, are you okay? Yeah, it was just time to leave. Or
Yeah.
he'll say, no, actually, like, I had to get out of there because I was feeling like I needed to participate in what was taking place.
It's like you have
Okay.
to trust their new instincts, and
Yeah.
but it's got to be really difficult to be able to do that.
That's the hardest part. And the communication, because it's still very raw for him. Like, he could talk to a complete stranger about his experiences, what he went through, how he felt, how it affected me, because I was the only person that he had close to him. He had friends and he had the people he worked with, but I was the only person that loved him that he had in his corner here, because his family is 2 provinces away
Yeah.
and they couldn't come out here. I was the one that took the brunt of all of it. It's not like, he'd lash out at his brother, he'd lash out at his family. It was me. It
Right.
was wholly, solely me.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself like kind of lost in this haze. You've been lashing out at me, and now I'm just supposed to let you have whatever you want.
Yeah.
But in the same token, you just want to sit and communicate with that person, and you want him to say to you what he says to complete stranger. But it takes time. We're now 14 months today. He's made his amends. He wrote me a letter, and he was able to verbalize those things in a letter. But to actually sit down and be like, verbalize it to me, he still can't.
Yeah.
Because he did hurt me and he feels bad.
Yeah.
And I just have to let it go. I'm a very head-on person. I hate confrontation, but I hate drama. I hate emotions. And so if there's like the slightest little bit of angst with me and somebody, I'm the first one to come to you and be like, did I upset you? Did I make you mad?
Yeah.
Is everything
Yeah.
good? Is everything okay? Or when you said this, you offended me. That's just who I am, because I don't want anything festering.
Yeah.
And I'm always worried about everybody else. And there comes a time where you finally have to worry about yourself and your own mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you, oh, your significant other is going in for treatment. You're going to need help also, because their main concern is that person, of course. But the people that are left behind are truly left behind, and they have to pick up the pieces while worrying constantly about their loved one, by worrying, is this going to work? Am I spending $20,000 and this isn't even going to do anything? Like, there's so much fear and worry in all of it, and the families need help.
Nobody reaches out and says, hey, can I come help with chores? Or can I drop off supper? They just think that because you've been this hard shell that's held everything together, that you're just going to continue to be. And nobody realizes that that shell is cracked in so many pieces that, the slightest little tear drops to your cheek and you're puddle. That's it.
Yeah.
You just fall apart, and it's just a big gooey mess. And nobody prepares you for that. Nobody.
Yeah. I also don't know about you, but during that time, like, I wasn't really communicating with anybody about what was going on. Of course, my close family knew what was going on, but I didn't want the world to know what was happening, because there's shame. There's shame, and there's all these things attached to it.
Yeah, it was pretty hush, like our closest family and friends, because we live in a very tight-knit community. Even though we live very rural, like our closest town is a half an hour away. So we're out there. Our community is tight. It's like a family. And so they all saw what was going on. So I didn't really have to tell anybody. The neighbor would stop by or something, and we board some horses for our neighbors as well as have my own horses here. And she would stop by and she's like, where's Ernie? Haven't seen him around in a few days. And then you have to be the one to break the news. And we're very fortunate in the sense that we've lived in a community that's predominantly Mennonites. So they don't drink.
Right.
Oh,
And
interesting.
they're very, how would I say, compassionate people. There's no judgment, none whatsoever.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of gratefulness in that, because I didn't have a ton of help when he was gone, and I was just struggling to keep your head above water. And some days you did, and some days you drowned just a little bit, but you got back up there. When he came home, there was people around that were willing to do fun things with him and involve him, because everything that he knew to do evolved around booze. Everything.
Yeah.
And there was also that, because I didn't take any time off work through it all, because I couldn't afford to. When he came home, there was that peace of mind because they knew what he had just gone through. They were constantly checking in on him.
Mhm.
Aw.
They would pop by in the morning and have tea with him or coffee with him and bring a little bit of fresh baking. And if I was going to be working over supper, they would call him to their place to go down for supper. So it was that
Yeah.
constant check-in to make sure, hey, are you doing okay? At that time, that's when I felt like really fell apart, because now the stress was off of me, the strain was off of me, and now everything had festered and was at the surface. And I was angry, I was mad, I was hurt, I was
Mhm.
sad. It takes time and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of strength. And I've had different people come to me and say, so you're advocating to stay in an abusive relationship? Absolutely not. Not at
My
all.
God. Yeah.
Not at all. But what I am saying is coming out on the other side of it and giving them a second chance. It's important because there's a reason you fell in love to begin with. Everybody deserves a second chance, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a lot of things that happened, but there's a lot of changes that happened in that time too. We celebrate those mile markers. He went to meetings like obsessively in the beginning. Now he doesn't as much, but I don't stress it. In the beginning, I was like, are you on your meeting? It's Wednesday. Where is it? Or he did a Zoom meeting every single day. And if it was 7 o'clock and he wasn't on the iPad, I'm like, why aren't you on your meeting? And so now it's just, I trust him enough to know that he does it when he needs to. And social media has been a saving grace in a lot of it, because there are a lot of recovered addicts and recovering addicts, and I'll find them sometimes just in a quiet place and just watching TikToks and listening to what different people have to say on WhatsApp. And hey, if it works for you, who am I to say?
Absolutely.
And that's where I would say, like, the advice to go and get the book that I was recommended to and work through codependency.
Yeah. I'm totally going to read that book, because that was one of the things that my husband said. He was like, we're codependent. You and I are codependent on each other. And I didn't really know what that meant. And you almost think, okay, yeah, we take care of each other, but being codependent isn't a good thing. And I feel like I'm still codependent, and he's been dead for 4 years. So it's something that I really need to work on.
It's hard. It's a hard journey. And that one comes with a workbook. It's like a 12-step program, the same as they're working through that you work through.
Okay, I'm looking at the book right now.
It's Codependent No More. So
How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. Oh, by Melanie Beattie, you said?
Yeah, Melody.
And I'm getting it.
In these facilities, you'd think for the amount of money that you pay that they would have a package to be like, here you go. They literally gave me a paper that was a receipt. That was the only thing that I got from them, was a receipt.
God.
Thank you for your money now. Toodaloo.
Yeah.
And on top of this, he did not want to call his employer before he went into treatment.
Right.
He's like, I can't. So I called them and told them, and I was like, I was a horrible person, left him in a difficult position. And like, how could you do such a horrible thing? And you struggle with that. It was just at the beginning of Harvest, and she's like, you're a horrible person and you left us in a difficult position, and how could you do this? And I'm like, are you for real? I'm a horrible person? Are you kidding me? Did you ever stop to think what I'm going through right now?
Yeah.
And the heck of it was, I had talked to him and I said, I have 3 weeks of holidays banked at work from all the overtime. And I said, so I can still get paid there. And I said, and I can go help them with Harvest because I grew up on a farm. I can run a combine. I could do this.
Yeah.
So I was calling her to say, I'll take this time off work and I'll come help you guys, so that it's an extra bit of money too for us to be able to make ends meet.
Right.
But she called me all sorts of names, and I never need to speak to you again, and hung up on me. And he still works for them.
That's so awful.
It is. Yeah. Crazy.
But my grandma always used to say, the darkest storms make the prettiest of rainbows. And you know what? We're starting to see that now.
Yeah. Wow. Chelsey,
for
thank you so
sharing.
much for sharing that. That's a really hard topic and a hard conversation that I think more people need to be having that perspective that you have.
I just want people to know there's no shame in it. There's no shame in mental health. There's no shame in addiction.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. And we'll let you get on with your day.
Awesome.
We'll be in touch really soon. Have a good day.
You bet. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
Thank you so much to today's guest and to everyone for listening.
If you're enjoying this show, there are many ways that you can help our podcast grow.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, join us on our Patreon,
Follow us on social media, check out our merch store,
share our show with your friends, download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
and if you'd like to be a guest on our show, please message us on IG or Facebook.
Have a great week, and thank you so much for your support. Bye!
Bye!
Why are they still here?
I don't know. What should we do?
I guess I'll just turn up that outro music.